Hello YouTube and all the honeys out there. Hope you all are doing well on this Monday, which I say is the first official day of spring, meteorologically speaking. But I thought I'd do one more report for Black History. I know it's not Black History Month, but like I always say, Black History is not just for 1 month. It's all through the year. But there's one particular person I thought you need to know. He's a forgotten war hero all the way from World War I. His name was Henry Johnson. And he joined the National Guard. He was with a unit called the HARLEM HELLFIGHTERs. And they got that name for a reason. Because they were from Harlem. And at that time they gave the Germans hell. But anyway, Henry Johnson. He was born about 1897. They're not sure exactly the date, but he died in 1929. He was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He joined the New York National Guard's 15th Infantry Regiment, an all-black military reserve force, later named the 369th Infantry Regiment. When Henry first arrived in France, he and his fellow black soldiers were assigned labor duties instead of combat training. They were there to support the 161st Division of the French Army. This is because white American soldiers did not like fighting with African Americans. So in protest, the white American soldiers would not fight. The racism was so bad that the American Expeditionary Force made and distributed pamphlets to warn the French of the supposedly criminal and sexual nature of black people. While the white Americans did not like black people, the French always spoke highly of black soldiers and treated the black soldiers equally. In May of 1918, Henry Johnson and another black soldier by the name of Needham Roberts were in the forest of the Argonne Forest of France. They, Johnson and Roberts, they were there as guards, checking out the area, patrolling it. And they were in a trench when snipers had them pinned down. Soon Johnson heard wirecutters. They, the Germans, were cutting their way through the lines using wire cutters to cut the barbed wire that was stationed all along there at that time. The German raiding party was coming their way in the silence of the night. They, Henry Johnson and Needham Roberts, were expecting the worst, and they would soon get it. They lined up grenades on top of their little dugout. In the meanwhile, Johnson sent Needham back to the trenches to warn the French of the coming attack. Johnson threw a grenade in the dark. The Germans returned fire, and they knew where they were. And they started loading them up, shooting at them. Meanwhile, Needham, who had been wounded by a grenade blast, crawled his way back to Johnson. Johnson saw how bad he was hurt and knew it was all up to him. Their position was exposed. So what did he do? Well, wounded, stunned, and bleeding, Needham laid there and said, "Look, line these grenades up and just throw them as many as we can, because that's all we got. We got to try to make it out of this and hopefully we can survive." In the meanwhile, while they were doing that, Roberts got wounded himself. He was shot in the head and in the torso. They threw every grenade they had, but then they ran out of grenades. It was too many Germans. So what did he do? Johnson, all he had was his rifle. and he fired it till he ran out of bullets and his rifle jammed. So he picked up his rifle and he used it like a club, and he was swinging it like crazy. He ran straight toward the Germans doing this. And meanwhile, his rifle butt broke and it splintered in half. He didn't have nothing else to work with except what they call a bolo knife. It was like a Filipino knife that was usually attached to the rifle butts. Sometimes when the soldiers, they would charge the enemies, they would have that bayonet out like this here to go after the enemy. That's all he had. Now, when this happened, this would have been enough for anybody else. They would have said, this is it. I know I'm about to die. But Henry Johnson said, I'm not giving up. I can't give up. And he didn't give up. He knew he had to do something. Like I said, he started swinging that rifle butt like crazy. And this is where he got the name, the Black Death. That's what the Germans called him. Because when he got through, there was nothing but dead and wounded Germans. And he didn't have, all he had was that, like I said, was that knife and his bare fist. And he was working that. I mean, he was like a black tornado. He wouldn't quit till he had to do what he had to do. He ended up killing 4 Germans and wounded 15 or 20 of them by himself. And Henry Johnson was only 5'4" and 150 pounds. By the end of the battle, he had 21 wounds, but he saved his fellow soldiers and Needham Robbins, who was a hero in his own right too. Plus, he saved the whole regiment and the French soldiers that were with him. Because of his valor and courage, he earned the moniker, the Black Death. He was awarded the highest honor that France can give, the Croix de Guerre Medal, for his accomplishment. Johnson's regiment was known as never lost a man through capture or a foot of ground to the enemy. When the war ended, he and his unit were given a parade in New York City to adoring crowds in 1919. Henry Johnson would die, all but forgotten, at the age of about 32 in 1929, possibly from alcohol, trying to chase those demons of the war which he brought back home with him, and the mistreatment he and so many other fellow black veterans received back at home. While entitled to a Purple Heart and other medals, he never received it from his home country while he was alive. In 1996, President Clinton posthumously awarded Henry Johnson a Purple Heart, and later the Army awarded him the Distinguished Service Cross. Then in 2015, President Barack Obama awarded Henry Johnson the highest medal the U.S. can give, the Congressional Medal of Honor. Received all these awards after his death, mainly. Henry Johnson, he started off as a private. When he came out, he was a sergeant. He was America's first World War I hero. I mean the first, black or white. Someone you should know about and be filled with pride knowing that this man fought for his country, and he fought for what he believed in, and he did what he had to do. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this here. This is something I knew a little bit about. I knew about the Harlem Hellfighters, but I didn't know particularly about Henry Johnson. But him and, like I said, Needham Roberts. By the way, I got a picture of them sitting together. Let me see here. You find it here. Okay. Okay. This is a picture of them during the war.
Got to hold it up higher.
Okay, I believe that's Henry Johnson right there, and Needham Roberts on the end. They were two best buddies. They fought together.
Hold it up higher.
They fought together, and they came out the war together. World War I. Black American heroes, both of them. Thank you for listening. You all take care. I hope you enjoyed this here story of mine. And until the next time, you all take care. Stay healthy. And be careful out there. Bye now. Much love. Walter.